on your knees, right now. Sir, I was just getting gas. Are you deaf? Down now. He shoved her shoulder and she stumbled against the fender, catching herself on the hot metal. Stolen valor. That's what you people call it, isn't it? Dressing up in something you didn't earn. I earned every stitch of this. My ID is in my back pocket, he laughed, an ugly short laugh like a door slamming. Your pocket? Right. I'm not putting my hand in there. God knows what I'd find. He wrenched both her arms behind her back. The cuffs bit down with a metallic click that seemed to echo across the whole parking lot. A colonel. You. That's the funniest thing I've heard all year. Your kind can't even follow directions, and you want me to believe you give them? She said nothing. Her jaw was tight, her eyes fixed on some invisible point past his shoulder, her breathing slow and even, the way she'd trained herself to breathe under artillery fire. 11 people stood frozen around the pumps. Nobody moved. None of them had any idea what was coming, least of all him. The roadside stop gas station sat on Route 9, about 35 miles outside of Fort Ashwood, North Carolina. 2 pumps, a squat convenience store with a flickering sign, a parking lot cracked into a spiderweb of old asphalt. The kind of place you stopped at, only because your tank was blinking empty, never because you wanted to. It was a humid Thursday afternoon in late September. The sky hung low and gray, thick with the smell of cut grass and gasoline. Colonel Renata Okafor eased her silver Jeep Wrangler into Pump 1 and cut the engine. For a moment she just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes closed, breathing. 10 months. That's how long she'd been gone this time. 10 months at a forward logistics hub overseas, coordinating supply lines for a brigade of over 1,000 soldiers. 10 months of 18-hour shifts, static-filled calls with her daughter at 3 in the morning, meals eaten standing over a folding table because sitting down felt like a luxury she hadn't earned yet. Now she was 35 miles from home. She stepped out and stretched, arms overhead, her spine cracking twice. She wore a faded gray army hoodie, soft from 100 washes, the patch of the 82nd Airborne stitched on the left shoulder. No uniform, no visible rank, just a tired woman in comfortable clothes at the tail end of a very long road. Renata had enlisted at 18, out of a small town near Columbus, Georgia. Her mother had cleaned office buildings at night and packed groceries on weekends. Her father had left before she could remember his voice. A recruiter had come to her high school gymnasium and told a room full of restless teenagers they could see the world. She joined because she needed to leave. She stayed because she turned out to be extraordinary at it. She moved through the ranks the way water moves through stone, slow, relentless, reshaping everything around her. Second lieutenant at 22, captain at 27, major at 31, lieutenant colonel at 37, full colonel at 40, 21 years of service, 3 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars. A Legion of Merit she kept folded in a drawer because she hated being asked about it. She swiped her card at the pump, leaned against the Jeep as the tank filled, and pulled out her phone. 40 minutes out. 3 dots blinked then. Yes. Double cheese, extra pickles. Hurry, Mom. Renata smiled. A real one, the first in weeks. She slipped the phone into her pocket and walked into the store. A bell rattled above the door. Inside it smelled like burnt coffee and lemon floor cleaner. A young woman behind the register, blonde ponytail, name tag reading Dana, glanced up from her phone. Afternoon. Hi there. Renata grabbed a water bottle and a bag of trail mix, set them on the counter. Dana's eyes drifted to the patch on her shoulder. You military? Yes, ma'am. 21 years. Whoa. My cousin's stationed at Ashwood. Infantry. What do you do? Logistics. Airborne. That's intense. Thank you for your service. Thank you for saying it. Renata paid, took her bag, and walked back out into the thick afternoon air. Her tank was nearly full. A couple of other cars sat at the pumps, a white pickup, a minivan with a stick-figure family decal on the back window. A man in a faded ball cap filling up beside her. Ordinary. Unremarkable. A Thursday like every other Thursday. She didn't notice the patrol car pull into the lot. She didn't see the officer step out, adjust his belt, and stare at her for 3 long seconds. At her skin, at the patch, at the Jeep, before he started walking toward her. She was thinking about cheeseburgers, about her daughter's voice, about how good a real shower was going to feel. She had no idea the next several minutes were about to blow her whole life wide open and end his. Officer Cole Bannister was 27 years old, 4 years on the Millhaven police force, 2 commendations for traffic stops, a gym membership he used religiously, and an opinion about everyone he'd never met. He parked at an angle near the air pump, stepped out, rolled his neck, and popped a piece of gum into his mouth. He scanned the lot the way he always did. Fast, efficient, sorting people into boxes before they'd said a single word. Man at pump 3, white ball cap. Fine woman in the minivan, white kids in the back. Fine woman at pump 1, black, army hoodie, patch on the shoulder. He stopped walking. He stared at her a full 5 seconds. She hadn't noticed him yet. She was leaning against her Jeep, sipping water, scrolling her phone. Relaxed, comfortable. Like she belonged here. That bothered him more than he wanted to admit. Bannister had grown up in Millhaven. His father had been a cop. His uncle had been a cop. His grandfather had run the county's first patrol unit back when there'd only been 2 cruisers in the whole district. He understood this town, its rhythms, its people, and when something looked wrong to him, he trusted that feeling like a compass needle. He started walking, not fast, not slow, the deliberate pace of a man who'd already made up his mind before his first step. "Ma'am." Renata looked up. "Yes? That hoodie. Where'd you get it?" She glanced down at it, then back at him. "It's mine. I'm in the Army." "You're in the Army." Flat. Not a question. A verdict. "Yes, sir." 82nd Airborne, stationed at Fort Ashwood. Uh-huh. He stepped closer, close enough that she caught the spearmint on his breath. "And what rank are you supposed to be?" "Supposed to be." She filed that away. "I'm a colonel." He let out a short breath through his nose, almost a laugh. "A colonel? You?" "Yes." "You want to see ID?" "In my back pocket, sir, my seat card." "Get it out." Slow. She reached back, slow and deliberate, the careful, practiced movement of someone who'd learned long ago how to move around armed men who didn't trust her, and held the card out between 2 steady fingers. Bannister took it like it was something dirty. Looked at the photo, looked at her, looked at the photo again, turned it over, held it up to the gray afternoon light, like he was checking a counterfeit bill. "This could be anybody's. It has my name, my rank, my photo, my branch of service." "Yeah, I can read." He flicked it with his thumbnail. "I can also tell when something doesn't add up. You know how many people I've caught wearing stuff they never earned? Grown men crying at the VFW about tours they never did. It's disgusting. I've served 21 years, officer. 21 years, and you're filling up at a gas station in a hoodie. No uniform, no convoy, no escort. Just a hoodie and a laminated card that could have come out of a drugstore photo booth. Officers don't wear their uniforms on personal leave. That's standard protocol. Don't lecture me on protocol." His voice dropped, quieter now, but harder, like a door easing shut instead of slamming. 3 generations of law enforcement in my family. I know protocol. What I also know is that stolen valor's a federal crime. You understand that? I understand it better than you do. Good. Then you understand I can arrest you right now. Renata's hands stayed at her sides. She hadn't shifted her weight, hadn't crossed her arms, hadn't clenched a single muscle in her face. 21 years of training. Not just the military kind, but the harder kind. The kind that teaches a black woman exactly what happens if she gives a man like this any excuse at all. Had taught her stillness was armor. "Officer, I'm asking you to verify my identity through the Department of Defense database. 1 phone call, that's it. I don't need a phone call. I've got eyes, And my eyes are telling me plenty. Your eyes are telling you something your own system won't confirm. He stepped in even closer, close enough that she could see the vein pulsing at his temple. What did you just say to me? I said, verify me, please. The man at pump 3 had stopped fueling. He stood by his truck, one hand resting on the bed, watching. The woman in the minivan rolled her window down, her 2 kids leaning forward to see. Dana stood frozen in the store doorway, phone gripped so tight her knuckles had gone white. Nobody said a word. Bannister keyed his radio, dispatch Unit 4, requesting backup at the Route 9 fuel stop. Possible stolen Valor. Subject is uncooperative. Uncooperative. She had handed him her ID, answered every question, hadn't raised her voice, hadn't moved an inch. Uncooperative. Something shifted in Renata's chest. Not anger. She was long past anger. Something older, heavier. Something she'd first felt at 18 when a drill sergeant called her a quota. Something she'd felt at 26 when a superior asked if she'd earned her bars, or just checked a box. Something she'd carried through 1,000 briefing rooms and hallways, where someone looked at her and saw the wrong thing first, always first. She breathed in through her nose, out through her mouth. The same breath she used before every hard call in her career. 4 minutes later, a second cruiser rolled into the lot. Officer Marcus Riley stepped out, late 30s, taller than Bannister, sandy hair cut close, a quieter kind of face. He walked over with his thumbs hooked into his vest and took in the scene. A black woman standing perfectly still beside a jeep. Bannister pacing in front of her like a dog on a short leash. Stolen Valor, Bannister said.
Claims she's 2nd Airborne.
Riley looked at Renata, then at the CAC card still pinched between Bannister's fingers. Did you run the card? Don't need to. Look at her. 3 words. Look at her. As if looking were proof enough. As if skin were evidence. Really hesitated, a beat too long. Something flickered behind his eyes. Doubt, maybe. Or recognition. The look of a man watching something wrong unfold, and not yet deciding whether it was worth the cost of saying so. Ma'am, he asked, is this your vehicle? Yes, sir, and I am active duty. Colonel Renata Okafor, 82nd Airborne, Battalion Commander. You can confirm it in 30 seconds. Riley turned to Bannister, lowered his voice, not low enough. Cole. Maybe we just call it in. Run the card. I've got probable cause. She's wearing insignia she didn't earn. She handed you a CC card, man. It's got a DOD hologram on it. Bannister's jaw tightened, nostrils flaring.
Are you backing me up or not?
Riley looked at the ground, then at his own boots, then at the cruiser behind him, as if measuring the distance to somewhere safer. Then he took a step back. That was the moment. Not Bannister's cruelty, that had been obvious from the start, but Riley's silence, that single step backward, dressed up as following the chain of command. Renata had seen it 100 times before. The good ones who say nothing are always worse than the bad ones who say everything, because you can fight the bad ones. The silent ones just let it happen. A teenager across the street had already pulled out his phone, filming steady, holding it level like he understood exactly what he was capturing. So had the man by the truck. So had the woman in the minivan, her window all the way down now, phone braced against the door. Dana stood frozen in the doorway, tears already welling. Bannister didn't notice, or didn't care. It wouldn't matter to him until it mattered to everyone. Ma'am, put your hands on the vehicle. She looked at him. Steady. Level. 21 years of rank behind her eyes. Then she turned and placed both palms flat on the warm hood of her Jeep. His hands moved down her sides, across her waist, along her hips, lingering far longer than any lawful search required. She knew procedure. She'd trained detainee handling on 3 continents. This wasn't a pat-down. This was theater. What's in your pockets? Just my phone and wallet. He pulled the phone free, glanced at the screen. Her daughter's text, still glowing there. Double cheese, extra pickles, hurry, Mom. And dropped it onto the hood like garbage. The screen cracked in a thin spiderweb line, straight across her daughter's words. Then the wallet. He flipped through it with his thumb, careless, like shuffling a deck of cards. Her military credit union card, her driver's license. A photo of her daughter, grinning in a yellow dress at a promotion ceremony, holding a small paper flag. A folded receipt from a diner 3 states back. He held up the photo. Who's this? My daughter. At what? At my promotion. When I made colonel. He tossed the wallet onto the hood beside the phone. The photo slipped free and landed face down against the metal, the yellow dress vanishing into gray paint. You know what I think? Bannister said, louder now, no longer speaking just to her, performing for the crowd gathering at the edges of the lot. I think you found this stuff somewhere. Or stole it off somebody who actually served. Because in my experience, and I've got plenty, people like you don't make colonel, don't command anything, not a platoon, not a desk, not a damn thing. She said nothing. Her hand stayed flat on the hood. You want to know why? He wasn't asking, because it takes discipline. Standards. Something you clearly don't have, and it takes a certain kind of person, and you ain't it. The man by the truck shook his head slowly, capped his tank, got in his vehicle, and drove off without a word. He didn't want to be a witness. He just wanted to not be there anymore. The woman in the minivan kept filming. Her oldest, maybe 8, pressed his face to the glass. Mom, why is the policeman being mean to that lady? She pulled him back gently, whispered something, kept the phone rolling. Bannister yanked open the Jeep's rear door. No warrant, no consent, no hesitation, and reached for the duffel bag on the back seat. You can't search my vehicle without a warrant, Renata said, her voice flat and calm, the kind of calm that costs everything to hold. Probable cause, sweetheart. Suspected fraud. Don't need your permission. He didn't have probable cause. A hoodie with a unit patch isn't evidence of anything. A federal ID with a government hologram is the opposite of fraud. Any first-year law student could have told him that. But Bannister didn't care about the law anymore. He cared about being right, in front of an audience that was now recording every second of it. He unzipped the bag, folded combat uniforms inside, pressed razor-sharp, name tape reading Okafor, Silver Eagle rank insignia catching the gray light. Underneath, a worn leather folder, official transfer orders, stamped and signed. A commendation letter from a 2-star general, a Bronze Star citation, 2 pages, single-spaced, describing actions under direct enemy fire in words Bannister couldn't have pronounced if his life depended on it. He read 3 lines, stopped. His jaw worked the gum faster. Riley had drifted closer, reading over his shoulder. Whatever doubt had been sitting behind his eyes sharpened into something closer to dread. Cole. That's a Bronze Star citation. So what? You can buy those online too. It's got a 2-star general's signature. Official letterhead, I said. So what? He shoved the folder back into the bag, zipped it hard enough to rock the Jeep on its suspension, and slammed the door. He turned back to Renata. She hadn't moved an inch. 21 years of service, 3 deployments, 1,000 soldiers who'd trusted her judgment under mortar fire. She had written condolence letters to families of the fallen by hand, every single one. She had sat with 19-year-old privates in field hospitals and told them they were going home even when she wasn't sure. And now she was standing in a gas station parking lot with her hands on her own car, while a 27-year-old with a badge told her she wasn't good enough to be who she was. All right, Bannister said, pulling the cuffs from his belt. Turn around, hands behind your back. Officer, you are about to make a mistake you cannot take back. The only mistake here is that hoodie. Turn around. Now. She turned, slow and deliberate, and looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since this began. Not with fear, not with rage, with pity. She pitied him, and he was too far gone to even notice. He grabbed her left wrist, then her right, clicked the cuffs shut tighter than necessary. the metal biting into the pale band of skin where her watch usually sat, a gift from her daughter on her 40th birthday. "You have the right to remain silent," he began. "I know my rights," she said quietly, "better than you know yours." Across the street, 17-year-old Tyler Combs had been filming for 4 straight minutes. Phone steady, landscape mode, holding the frame level like a documentary cameraman. Because that's exactly what it was becoming. His video was already live. He'd titled it, "Cop Handcuffs Black Woman at Gas Station for Wearing an Army Hoodie." 2 minutes in, 300 views. 5 minutes, 2,000. 8 minutes, 11,000 and climbing. Comments flooding faster than anyone could read them. Someone tagged the local news station. Someone tagged the NAACP. Someone tagged the Army's official page. The algorithm had it now. And the algorithm does not forget. Renata stood beside the cruiser, cuffed, chin level, spine straight. She could see her Jeep from there, the cracked phone, the wallet, her daughter's photo face down on the hood, the yellow dress swallowed by gray metal. She thought about calling out to Dana, asking her to set the photo right side up to keep it safe. She didn't. She wouldn't give Bannister another word to twist, so she stood and she waited. The way she'd waited through sandstorms and budget hearings and promotion boards that looked at her like she didn't belong there either. Bannister was walking her toward the cruiser when his radio crackled. "Unit 4, hold transport. Do not leave the scene. Repeat, hold." He stopped, frowned, keyed the mic. "Copy, dispatch. What's going on?" "Stand by, patching a call through. Static." Then a voice, not the dispatcher, deeper, slower. The kind of voice that has never once needed to raise itself to make a room go quiet. "This is Major General Harlan Pruitt, United States Army, Fort Ashwood. Who am I speaking with?" Bannister blinked at the radio like it had grown teeth. "This is, Officer Cole Bannister, Millhaven PD. Officer Bannister, I'm going to say this once, and you're going to listen carefully." Every word landed like a boot coming down on hard ground. "You currently have in custody Colonel Renata Okafor. She is an active-duty battalion commander in the 82nd Airborne Division. 21 years of distinguished service. 3 combat deployments, 2 Bronze Stars, a Legion of Merit. She is not a fraud. She is not a criminal. She is one of the finest officers I have had the privilege of serving alongside in 30 years of wearing this uniform." Silence swallowed the whole gas station. Even the wind seemed to hold still. "Do you understand what I just told you, officer?" Bannister's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His knuckles had gone white around the radio. Yes, sir. Good. Now here's what happens next. You will remove those handcuffs from Colonel Okafor immediately. You will return every one of her belongings, and you will apologize to her, out loud, right now. Then you will report to your commanding officer, because the United States Army will be filing a formal complaint with your department, your county, and the Department of Justice. Are we clear?" The lot was dead silent. Tyler's viewer count had crossed 40,000 and was climbing by the second. Dana had both hands pressed over her mouth, tears streaking her face. The woman in the minivan had lowered her phone, but kept it recording, one hand on the wheel, the other on her son's shoulder. Riley stood frozen, arms dropped to his sides, face gone the color of old paper. "Are we clear, Officer Bannister?" "Yes. Yes, sir, we're clear." "Then move." Bannister clipped the radio back to his belt. His hands were shaking. Not much, but enough. He walked toward Renata, each step slower than the last, like the parking lot itself had stretched out in front of him, like the distance between his cruiser and her Jeep had become something he couldn't cross without losing a piece of himself, because he was about to. He fumbled the key twice before the cuffs finally clicked open. Renata brought her hands forward slowly, rubbing at the raw pink line circling her left wrist, a mark that would fade within the hour, but would stay with her far longer than that. I need to." Bannister couldn't finish the sentence. She looked at him. A long look, the kind that measures a person down to the foundation and finds it hollow. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't mention lawsuits or consequences. She said, "You didn't verify." 3 words. Quiet. Final. Then she walked to the hood, picked up her cracked phone, picked up her wallet, found her daughter's photo, turned it face up, looked at it a long moment. The yellow dress, the small paper flag, the grin, and slid it back into place. She got in her Jeep, started the engine, adjusted the mirror, and pulled out of the lot the same calm way she'd pulled in, signaling before her turn, not once looking back at Bannister, at Riley, at any of the phones still pointed her way. 35 miles to home. 35 miles to her daughter, to double cheeseburgers and a shower, and a bed that hadn't held her in 10 months. Behind her, Bannister stood alone in the lot, cruiser still idling, cuffs still dangling from his fingers, the wind pushing an empty paper cup in slow circles around his boots. He didn't move for a long time. By the time he got back to the station, the video had passed 200,000 views. He didn't know that yet. He drove with both hands locked on the wheel, the general's voice looping in his head, like a recording he couldn't shut off. One of the finest officers I have had the privilege of serving alongside. He parked, walked inside. The desk sergeant, a woman named Ortiz who'd worked the department 15 years, looked up from her monitor and said nothing. She didn't have to. Her face had already seen it. Captain Walter Griggs was waiting behind his desk, arms crossed, glasses pushed up on his forehead, the video frozen on his monitor at the exact moment the cuffs clicked shut. "Sit down." Bannister sat. "Tell me what happened." I observed a female subject wearing military insignia at the fuel stop on Route 9. I had reasonable suspicion. Griggs held up one hand. "I've watched the video, all 11 minutes. I've pulled your body cam, both angles. Neither one supports whatever you're about to say." Bannister's mouth shut. Griggs took off his glasses, pinched the bridge of his nose, and looked like a man who'd been at this job long enough to know some mistakes could be walked back and some couldn't, and he was staring at one that couldn't. "You detained an active-duty Army colonel. You accused her of fraud without a single verification check. You searched her vehicle without a warrant or her consent. You ignored a valid federal ID with a Department of Defense hologram. You ignored a Bronze Star citation with a 2-star general's signature on it. And when your partner suggested you call it in, you refused." Every sentence landed like a nail driven into wood. "You didn't make a mistake, Cole. You made a choice. Multiple choices. And at every single point where any reasonable officer would have stopped, you kept going. I've got a major general on the line, a video with 500,000 views and climbing, and the NAACP requesting a full investigation. 500,000. Bannister's stomach dropped through the floor. "As of right now, you're suspended without pay, effective immediately. Badge and weapon." Griggs held out his palm. Bannister stared at it. Then, slowly, he unclipped his badge and set it on the desk. Then the gun. The metal made a dull, final sound against the wood. "Riley?" Bannister's voice came out hoarse. Formal reprimand for failure to intervene. He keeps his position, but he's on notice. Internal Affairs will interview both of you separately. Bannister nodded, staring at his own badge on the desk. His name engraved on the back, 4 years of service, 2 commendations, all of it sitting under fluorescent light next to a half-empty coffee mug. "Can I know?" Griggs said. "You can't. Go home. Don't talk to the press. Don't post anything. And Cole, get a lawyer. You're going to need one." He walked out past Ortiz, who didn't look up this time, past the break room, where 2 officers stopped talking the second he appeared, past the bulletin board with the department's mission statement, bolted to it in bold letters: integrity, accountability, surface. He pushed through the front doors into a parking lot gone dark. His cruiser was already impounded for evidence review. His personal car, a gray Civic, sat alone in the back row. He sat inside it for 11 minutes, before he found the strength to start the engine. 600 miles away, in a Washington law office, attorney Renee Faulkner, a former JAG officer turned civil rights litigator, watched Tyler's video for the third time, pausing on the same frame Griggs had: the cuffs, the face, the empty parking lot. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Colonel Okafor, my name is Renee Faulkner. I think we should talk." The investigation opened within 48 hours. Internal Affairs pulled Bannister's personnel file, and it was thick before they'd even started. Because buried in it were 4 prior complaints, every one of them from people of color, every one of them for the same pattern: aggressive stops, unwarranted searches, dismissive language. A Hispanic man pulled over for a broken taillight, left face down on the shoulder of Route 9, while Bannister tore through his trunk. A black teenager stopped on his bicycle 2 blocks from his own house because he matched a description. A Middle Eastern couple questioned at a rest stop for suspicious behavior, which turned out to be eating lunch. An elderly black woman asked to prove she owned her own car. 4 complaints, 4 internal reviews. 4 times the department found insufficient evidence and closed the file. 4 times Bannister went back to work with a clean record and a badge that still shined. Not this time. Faulkner filed a federal civil rights complaint within 72 hours, naming Bannister individually, Riley for failure to intervene, the Millhaven Police Department for systemic negligence, and the county for inadequate oversight. 43 pages. She knew exactly where the seams were weakest. The story broke wide by day 3. Local news first, then the networks. A national anchor introduced the segment with a line that spread faster than anything else that week. A 21-year Army veteran was handcuffed at a gas station for wearing her own uniform patch. The officer who arrested her had 4 years on the job. She had 3 combat deployments. Renata sat for a network interview the following week. Dress uniform pressed, Colonel's eagle gleaming on her collar, hands folded on the desk. The host asked how it felt, standing cuffed in that parking lot. She was quiet a moment. Then she said, "I felt 18 again. Like nothing I'd done in 21 years mattered. Like the uniform I bled for was invisible, because the only thing he could see was my skin." The clip crossed 10 million views in 2 days. But Renata didn't stop at being the sympathetic victim everyone wanted her to be. She did something harder. In a follow-up op-ed for a national paper, she wrote about the 4 buried complaints in Bannister's file, about a system that ignores 4 warnings and then acts shocked at the 5th. She wrote about Rayleigh, too, not with anger, but with precision. Officer Rayleigh read my Bronze Star citation with his own eyes. He saw the general's signature. He knew, and he stepped back. The system doesn't only fail because of the officers who act with malice. It fails because of the ones who see the malice and choose silence. That line got quoted in a congressional hearing 3 weeks later. The disciplinary hearing was held on a gray Wednesday morning. A small room, a long table, 5 members of the Civilian Review Board. Bannister sat at one end in a navy suit that looked bought the day before. No badge, no belt, no gun. A man taken out of his packaging with no idea how to stand without it. His lawyer argued reasonable suspicion, argued the ID was insufficient field verification, argued the hoodie and patch constituted visible grounds for inquiry. The board listened. Then they played all 14 minutes of body cam footage. Then the audio of General Pruitt's call. Then Tyler's video. Then they read all 4 prior complaints aloud, one at a time, with dates. Bannister's lawyer stopped talking somewhere around the 3rd one. The decision was unanimous. Termination effective immediately. Permanently barred from law enforcement work anywhere in the state. Certification revoked. His name entered into the National Decertification Database, a list that follows an officer to every department in every state for the rest of his life. No transfer. No quiet resignation somewhere else. No second chance. Riley received a formal written reprimand and a 12-month probation, 80 mandatory hours of bias training, and removal from patrol pending review. He didn't fight it. He didn't speak to the press. 3 days later, he requested a transfer to a department 2 counties over. The county moved fast after that, faster than anyone expected. The Board of Supervisors held an emergency session and voted, unanimously, to mandate annual implicit bias training for every officer in the county, no exceptions, and to create an independent civilian oversight committee with the power to review body cam footage and recommend discipline, something community groups had been asking for over a decade. Renata was invited to speak at the first Joint Police Community Forum held under the new policy. Standing room only. Officers filled the front 2 rows. Community members packed the rest. She stood at the podium in her dress uniform. No notes, none needed. "I'm not here for revenge," she began. "I'm here because what happened to me at that gas station wasn't rare. It wasn't isolated. It was a pattern. And patterns don't break themselves." She looked directly at the officers in the front row. Some held her gaze. Some didn't. "I don't need you to agree with me. I need you to verify before you act. That's all. Verify. It would have taken 30 seconds, 1 phone call, and none of this would have happened." The room stayed silent a long moment. Then someone in the back started clapping, then another, then the whole room. The officers in front were the last to join, but they joined. 6 months later, Renata Okafor stood in front of a mirror in her quarters at Fort Ashwood. Full dress uniform, every ribbon squared away, the colonel's eagle catching the light. She adjusted her barrette exactly the way she'd been taught at 18. 1 centimeter above the right eyebrow. There was a new patch on her shoulder today. She'd been selected to lead a newly created Army initiative on bias awareness and community relations. A program that hadn't existed 6 months earlier. It existed now because of a gas station, because of a hoodie, because a woman had stood perfectly still when everything in her wanted to move. Her daughter, Nadia, 16 now, long braids, her mother's jaw, sat on the edge of the bed holding the same small paper flag from the promotion photo. The one that had once landed face down on the hood of a Jeep in a gas station parking lot. "You nervous?" Nadia asked. "No." "Liar." Renata smiled. "Okay, a little." Nadia stood and straightened the ribbon bar on her mother's chest. The bronze stars, the Legion of Merit, rows of color that told a story most people would never bother to read, but could never take away either. "You look like a colonel," Nadia said. "I am a colonel. I know. I just like saying it." 300 miles south, the gas station on Route 9 looked mostly the same. 2 pumps, cracked awning, a parking lot still waiting on repaving that never came. But something had shifted. Dana, the girl with the blonde ponytail, wasn't behind the counter anymore. She'd quit 2 weeks after that day, not because of the job, but because of what she'd seen. And because standing frozen in a doorway with her phone shaking in her hands wasn't something she could live with twice. She enlisted. Basic training at Fort Jackson. 3 months in, learning to march, to shoot, to stand at attention longer than she'd thought her legs could hold her. She wrote Renata a letter, 2 pages on lined notebook paper, and said she'd joined because of her. Because she wanted to be the kind of person who didn't just stand in a doorway and record. Renata kept the letter in the same drawer as her Legion of Merit. Riley was in a different county now, a different department. He'd finished his 80 hours of bias training and quietly signed up for 60 more on his own time. He coached a youth basketball league on weekends and never once brought up what happened at the gas station. But his new partner, a 10-year veteran, said Riley verified every stop now, every ID, every single time, no exceptions. It had cost him something to learn it, but he'd learned it. And Bannister. Bannister was 28 now, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment 40 miles from Millhaven. He'd applied to 11 law enforcement agencies since his termination. All 11 had pulled his name from the National Decertification Index. All 11 had said no. He worked nights at a warehouse now, scanning barcodes, eating lunch alone in his car at 2 in the morning, under a buzzing sodium light. He never gave another interview. Never made a public statement. His social media had gone silent the day after the hearing, the last post still up 6 months later. A photo from his academy graduation, standing in formation, badge pinned on by his father, grinning like he'd already figured out exactly who he was going to become. Nobody had liked that photo in half a year. Tyler Combs's video settled at just under 14 million views. It got used in police training programs across 9 states, shown in college criminal justice courses, cited in 2 federal policy briefs. Tyler started his freshman year studying journalism, and he still kept his phone charged at all times, just in case. So here's the question I want you sitting with tonight. Have you ever watched something unfair happen to somebody, right in front of you, and said nothing? What stopped you? And the next time, because there will be a next time, what would it take for you to actually speak up? It takes 30 seconds to verify before you tear somebody's dignity apart. Judging a person by how they look isn't instinct. It's a choice. And watching it happen without saying a word, that's a choice too. Some people wear the uniform. Some people earn it. And the ones who bother to find out the difference before they act are the ones worth trusting with a badge in the first place.